Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Fine, thanks.
Long time no.
Fine, fine, thanks. What
Long.
time is it over there?
It's 11:30.
11:30. Wow, in the morning, obviously.
Yes, yes,
Now,
yes.
for you, it's now like Belkheb Akmak.
That's correct. Yeah.
For me, it's still Wasqib
Happy,
8 bird.
happy 8 bird.
8 bird. But did you know there's something very peculiar because for in the Mayan tradition, there's no fixed, let's say, unique way of considering which is the beginning of the day. For some of us, as for example, for me, the day does begins in the at midnight.
Okay.
For me, on the lineage I belong to, the day begins at sunset. For some, the day begins at midnight, and for some here and there, the day begins at sunrise.
Interesting.
There's different opinions about which is an well. So, following my own way, we are now under Beleheb Akmak.
I see. Oh, now this is sort of my understanding of it was that the day it starts to blend, kind of like the sun goes down, Belihab Akmak starts to come, but it's kind of maybe a little bit of Belihab and a little bit of Zikin, and as it goes more towards the morning, it becomes Zikin sort of fades away, almost like the tide of the ocean kind of coming in and coming out. That was sort of my understanding of it. Is that accurate, or is it exactly when the sun goes down, Zikin is finished?
For me, the point for me and the lineage I belong to, it has to be with the division of day into dark and light. If we begin the day at sunset, then you're going to have the day divided into both the feminine obscure, that is going to be the 12 hours, and the light and clarity, that is the masculine way of looking at the day.
I see. So it would be divided in as soon as the sun goes down, the feminine part of the day begins.
Yeah.
And the sun comes up, and that's the masculine part of the day.
Exactly. That's it.
Very interesting.
Well, no, you have to look at that in that sense. Like, it seems that in this way, the division of day follows the old philosophy of dividing things between the feminine and the masculine, the obscure and the light, gestation, conception, with inception, light, beginning, new beginning. So I found it I found it, but also I begin to this lineage that way to consider the day divided into two, and not by this kind of a fixed position that does not even begins with the Europeans, but with Arabic people. So that come to us through the Spaniards, but not really as let's say as a direct influence by European thinking, but that goes far beyond that. But as I told you, it depends. Kiche, Kaqchikel people, Sotuhil people, different lineages, different spiritual guides. We have a different opinion of what is today. I found this to be the most reasonable.
Well, as you said, go ahead.
And I work following that scheme of time. Now, so in this moment now, this is 8 o'clock, 8:33 in the night. So this is feminine time for Beleheb Akmak.
It actually before this interview, I went back and I listened to every interview that I ever did with you, and the other ones.
What about headaches?
Sorry.
What about headaches following my words?
Oh, I learned a lot. You know, you always say so much, and it's hard to digest everything. So, for example, one thing that you said right away was that everything is divided into a feminine principle and a masculine principle, and that's sort of a reasonable way to approach things. And so, again, approaching the Nawal or the day in this way, it fits. It makes sense. So yeah, you know, it's there. It is again, that same model. You know, there's a feminine part of the day and a masculine part of the day. Okay, yeah, I think that makes sense. I think you called it the 7 Mayan principles, if I'm not mistaken.
No, 7 Mayan principles, and it's not principles, it's observations.
It was a joke I think you made. Yeah.
Well, what happens is that, well, let me make first, let's make a remark. Talking about feminine and masculine is very popular now. It's very, very, very popular. Everybody uses those terms. Everybody, even in the academic world, they use that classification to divide things, but it is not really what we use. It's not, when talking to you in this moment and when talking for open audiences, I use feminine and masculine because it is now like the way to do it, but that is a classification we don't use. Let me tell you, the terms, they exist in Maya Kaqchikel, like feminine is ishokal and masculine is achial. You can use it, but it's not the common way to talk about things. And as I said, sometimes it's even ridiculous when academics use the feminine and the masculine, and then say it's a feminine god, and they sometimes, when they don't know how to classify, they got into trouble. Like, what am I going to put this entity, or what am I'm going to classify a phenomena of nature, for example. We apply words to define the complementarity. So, for example, in the night you are lying in the bed, and that is pakabal. That is the term in Mayan. And when you wake up and you go into action, is takalibal, that you rise, that you are now into the light. That is the complementarity terms. Pakalibal, takalibal. That's a way to talk about the night, or to talk about resting, or to talk about darkness, or to talk about you yourself immersed into let's say, the dark. But takalibal is to rise up, to begin action, and that is the way we really classify. So we have to divide things in their own terms, but for purpose of common understanding, even following the academics, we use feminine and masculine. It is just a way to talk. But anyways, the conceptualization exists. So the first part of the day is obscure and dark, or whatever, and is feminine, gestation.
So what is the term that you would use then in Kiche? I'm sorry, my pronunciation. Pakarabar? Is that what you would say?
This is an example. Pakalipal, to rest, to lie down.
Mm-hmm.
For example, talking about a person. For example, if you apply the shupakapa, maybe he's resting, lying up, excuse me, and that could be that he's resting or just sleepy, but it also could mean that he is ill, for example.
Mm-hmm.
If I said shintakik, or ikipal, ishukush, or something like that, that it means he's walking, is an opposition of terms. You can see it in the Popol Vuh, like always playing complementarity or complementary opposition.
So you would say then that, just to translate in English, would be that the the day is resting or lying down or in bed, and then the day has awoken or has
No,
some
the sun. For
the
example, in
sun.
this case, in this case, will mean that the sun is not is like Chupacabra is walking in the underground.
Right.
Now, Tikipal is going to rise up once again.
Kibal.
Tiki is
Tikibal.
yeah.
Okay, I'll try to remember that.
Well, I was just putting. I was just that sometimes when in interviews we're trying to express a conceptualization, sometimes I even me myself I use academic words that not necessarily fit or are really the key words that is applied by us. Anyways, it is going to be always there's going to be complementary opposition and terms that are going to define these dynamics between the feminine and the masculine, the obscurity and light, to be lie down or to be in action, even to close eyes or open eyes, or to be like, for example, bitter heart or sweet heart, things like that. There's always going to be that play, and that play is very is very poetic when talking in ceremonial speak.
Well,
Speech.
yeah. One thing that has come up over the last, like, it's been about a year since I've talked to you, eh? It's
Well, not bad, not a bad, but and then you told this is very important to say. In the Mayan ways, there's no way to make opposition between good and evil or bad and good. It's just when we talk about phenomena, especially the phenomena in the sense of the nature, what we really do is to talk about the description of that phenomena. But it is just a description of a phenomena, whatever it is. Let's say, for example, heavy rainings that go to overflow. They are not good. They are not bad. They are just a phenomenon. Earthquakes or whatever. We can. What happens is that we humans we apply the terms good and bad. How you deal with that, or which is the result to you, and then you can say this overflow affected me. It was bad. But it's not. It is only nature making her job, making things to put things into balance and whatever. It's only nature doing let's say her own spirit of things, or following the balance of energy. But because they are in here, well, we are going to tend to classify things into good or bad or evil even. And that is not true. It is just a phenomenon.
so that's the language that you wouldn't use to describe, let's say, somebody.
Somebody, and for example, this year, as you touch the item, for example, this year was Hope 5. The last one, because now we changed. The last one was 5 and that it means. Translated into Mayan terms, something that the wind was going to be rude, potent, energetic. That's the condition. That is only a condition. If that, let's say, heavy rainings and overflows and everything affected you, is something different. What we do is just to describe what is going to be the mood, the spirit, if you wanted to call the character of a year, but not saying it's good or bad. The good or bad classification of things begins when documents and let's say ancient documents or knowledge were begin to be translated for Spaniards or to express conditions. But good and bad is not really the classification for, let's say, spirits, energies, entities, or whatever which you wanted to call it, forces of the universe, that they are only acting, but they do not content, or they are not the let's say, the spirit that has the good or bad. So it was a heavy year. It was a strong, energetical, whatever you wanted to call it. Good wind.
Was hov ik.
Hop ik, the recent year.
My pronunciation of Kiche is pretty bad.
Mine too. Don't.
Oh, good. That's good to know. I don't feel so bad now. Hop. How do you say?
Hop ik.
Hop ik.
Hop ik. That's it.
Hop,
You got it.
hop,
Now
ik.
you got a good pronunciation.
I'm not used to making this sound in my throat. It's not.
Yeah, you have to use the glottis to stop air and to produce the sound, or you have to use it at purpose to produce like moving and stopping a string in the piano. So you have to.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very beautiful to apply philosophical conceptualization to talk about phenomena, and it is always a very poetical way to talk. But it's a misunderstanding to try to say, for example, this Nawal is bad. No, it's not bad. That Nawal, whatever the Nawal is, has conditions or a structure or a purpose, if you want to say purpose. Used to have heavy complaints about purpose in things. You can build your purpose, but to think that the universe has a purpose for you is something that you have to consider to talk about. Like, I can build my own purpose, but that the universe has a purpose for me, it's very different.
That's an interesting, it's quite different from another culture's concept, That's very, very interesting. I've been listening to a lot of lectures by, let's say, a Christian professor, and I don't usually like Christian things, but his interpretation of it is, I think, very reasonable. He's not an evangelical. He's talking about really Western concepts and positive ones, Not all Western concepts are bad, And it is more along the lines of you do have a purpose, and that's very important. And it's a very interesting idea. And
well, but let me tell you something. I have been working in this during more than 20 years, but I begin to heal when I was 7 years old as a bone healer, and I always see people complaining or saying this is like a curse in my life, or I have been blessed, and I have seen people telling their reality when they are in pain or when they release pain or something like that. And I found very interesting how we use full terms to define us or our reality. But the most mystical, as to say, or religious, or even, I don't know, the ones that believe in illusion, they apply they think that something behind you has a purpose for you. And in the Mayan West, you can see the Nawals working and the nature doing a job, and
Actually, just before you finish the story, I just wanted to say, like, one thing that I've often said, and maybe I'm completely wrong on this, is that your Nawal is kind of your purpose. Like, you have maybe a function or something like that. If you could picture yourself as a part of a body, like, okay, you're a hand, so be a hand, something like, you know what I'm saying? So, for example,
yes, because people are accustomed to repeat that, but what they are following is the Western astrology of having a purpose or having things like that. And maybe you have been heard that thing about like your Mayan sign, like just applying the words from Western astrology.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is that your Nawal has a sense, or make a sense, as a structure of the dynamics. Your Nawal has a sense, but you have to build your own purpose with that structure that you already got. It's like not going to ask for a short person, for example, to go to the Olympics to try to throw the hammer.
Play basketball, I was going to say, yeah.
You have to recognize your structure.
Sure.
Feel the sense, and then you have to build your purpose. And by the way, you can choose any purpose,
right?
Not what it's supposed to be that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm going to try to. I often try to adopt, let's say, terms that that I'll pick up from you. So I'll play with that idea of building a structure of a purpose or something, building a purpose rather than. I guess being given a purpose.
I was born with a purpose, but just believe, just try to you have been born with a purpose. Oh,
yeah, right, yeah.
That's bad luck because you are going to think, well, like, could you tell me what is that?
yeah, I understand.
It's very heavy when people apply the purpose of your life.
Yeah.
Into my life, I have to find out.
And it could be so easily gone wrong. It could, it's so easy for that to go wrong. There's about a million ways that having a purpose could really fuck you over, or everybody for that matter.
Well, that's manipulation. If someone told you something like the purpose of your life, it's like he or she has an idea of what you were supposed to be doing, or to teach you your own or real thing. You have to discover your own sense, and then you can build any purpose that you want. Mm-hmm. There's no necessity to apply more heaviness to a life that at the end is going to end anyways. So you have to enjoy what was, let's say, even given to you. But as I said, it's not the universe giving absolutely everything to you. That was given by your gestation. What was your creation? What is you? That's why when I talk about the Mayan calendar, I always begin with the epistemology of what we are. What is our character? What is our impulse? What is everything that is our, let's say, our structure? But to know how we were created, what is our, let's say, what we have to match with. Notice, and I begin with that, like to recognize that we have a structure, we have a sense, but you are free to choose your purpose, or to build a purpose, your own goals. But you have a structure. You have already a structure that is going to be what we call the Nawals.
I think that's a good way to think about the Nawal as a structure. I'll try to think about that. Because every Nawal has its difficulties and its gifts, or something like that. Is that fair to say?
They have characteristics. I'm going to go back again to what I was saying at the beginning. They have characteristics, and those characteristics, in the human way, are directed through actions. For example, I can say that a jaguar in the mountains has the same Nawal as me. Why not? And but in their own environment and atmosphere is going to represent one thing, and for me, it's going to be something different. I cannot be as aggressive as to kill someone. If the jaguar has this jaguar Nawal, well, it's more than acceptable to kill someone here and there.
Now, does a jaguar...
Not in my world.
Sure, yeah.
So, it depends. It's just characteristics. As, for example, talking about the jaguar Nawal, aggressiveness. Well, if that is embodied in a jaguar, that's okay. Not in me. In me, I have to manage with that.
Well, I was just going to ask you, do animals have Nawals?
Obviously.
Really? I've actually heard the opposite of that for quite some time. So could you talk about that? So let's say a jaguar. Let's pick a jaguar, and a jaguar could have many different kinds of Nawals.
Yes. I don't know which ones you are listening to, but everything that has a point of birth has a Nawal.
Really? Is it the same now? Would we follow the same Nawal? So, for example, let's say my cat is born on, I don't know, a Jaguar Day or something like that, would I now know?
For example, and it is not going to be only human appreciation of reality. For example, or even conception of consciousness. It is not going to be applied only to what we humans believe is our uniqueness as to having a consciousness. It could be something like, for example, a marriage. The day you choose to have your marriage, that it is a concept of uniting two people, two bloods. For example, the day that you choose is going to carry the Nawal, all your marriage is going to carry that Nawal. That's why we choose specific dates to get married, or for example, to begin to sow the seeds, or to plant a tree, or to begin in the building of a house, because the house is going to have that spirit as a foundation, let's say Nawal, but it's going to have that Nawal.
That is, now all of a sudden I have about 100 questions to ask. So let's just slow down. It gets too fast too quickly. That's the problem. Try to unpack that a bit. So, okay. So for example, yesterday was Tzolkin, and so I got a job offer. I got a job offer to teach at an elementary school, and I thought, wow, what a great what a great thing to happen on 8 Tzolkin, and I thought about maybe is it, you know what I mean?
Yes, for example, yesterday, let's follow the example. Did you receive an offer for job under the influence or the Nawal or the energy or whatever term you want to of Tzolkin? That's a good idea. That's a good point, because Tzolkin represents precisely Tikishik strength. That is, that you are going to you are going to rise up, and that this is going to function. But if you receive an offering or to enter into job, let's say under Nawal Khan, and that is going to be your first day, then you're going to be angry in that. The consciousness of the day is going to be embodied with the Nawal, with the total strength and characteristics of that Nawal. That's why we choose. That's how we analyze things. Which were the day it was born, or for example, for ceremonial purposes, when someone is very ill, we ask which was the day in which if the illness begins in one day, maybe not always, but under the Nawal in which the illness begins could give us an extra or the explanation of what was happening.
I have heard that before, and I've found it fascinating, but I've never, or I guess I could say I've rarely seen anybody who's a medium or somebody who could do like a reading like that. I've never, like, I've seen here in Japan, there are people who are fortune tellers, and it's a really popular part of the culture, and it's been here for a very, very, very long time. So, and everybody believes in that. It's kind of normal, and so, I've seen some people here. They have very interesting, how can I say, medium type things. But I've never seen. I've heard about somebody in the Mayan way counting from the Nawal of the beginning of the illness to find out about it. Or I've always found that a very fascinating idea, but I haven't seen it very much.
Well, that's the common practice. For example, yesterday I received a person in my house, and I was asking, do you have any idea when this began, and which was the first event? And he was, well, this was like in the final days of September, maybe the 27th, the 28th. And then you can begin to make that analysis, because the event has an spirit, an Nawal, an energy, and mood, or whatever. And you can make the analysis like that. Everything can be analyzed. And also the death point, the finalizing point, the Nawal in which a person dies, a house is burned, a car crashed, a business fall, or something, is something that you can analyze too. everything. That's why we are called the that we got the burden of time, because everything is analyzed under the birthday and before. This is something that I'm using the first time with you, but also death day is another way of, I mean, entire thing of knowledge to analyze reality.
Could you explain? I'll give you a personal example, and then I would like you to explain. But my grandfather, how can I say, Kieb Akmak to Akmak, and that is the Nawal of my father.
Yeah.
So he died on my father's, how can I say, birthday. And so I thought that was very interesting. I don't know what it means or anything like that, but I thought that was quite interesting. So
Well, but
go ahead.
No, but for example, if he was born on Akmak, we need to know the Mayan death day.
Oh no, my grandfather's Nawal was Hun Imosh.
And he died in
Kiebakmak.
Okay, that's it. So Akmak is going to define the strength that he was dealing with during his entire life. The energy, the spirit, the mood under he was born was Hunimosh. That is another different thing. That was the structure, the sense, the nawal. But Akmak defined the struggle. And when you analyze both days, you will have an idea of how he thought, how he functioned, and at the end, what leads him to death. Because for us, death is the one, the birthday, the death day is the one that reclaims your body or your energy or your conscious life. So it's the final tribute. It's the final tributation. So you are given a Nawal in the moment that you are born, related to pregnancy, related to condition. The death day of, or the death day of Nawal is going to explain your struggle, what you do, what you did.
That's amazing.
Well, now you hear a secret.
I'll think about that one for the next few years and see what I come up with.
Well, let me think something. Let me tell you something. For example, and this is very easy to do, and people who has good knowledge or who are interested in this knowledge, you can choose, for example, a celebrity and whose birthday could be, let's say, trustable to be the real one.
Yeah, pick a celebrity. Actually, no, let's not do that. No, just give me the example.
For example, I don't know, someone like John Lennon, for example, okay. And you can see, I don't know which was that day. I'm just using an example.
Sure.
By making a comparison of what was the birthday and what was the Nawal that asked the final tributation of consciousness, you can analyze what was the struggle, what was the point, what was the remarkable thing, what was the inner fight, and that is what the person embodied and what the person really was. It is amazing. Same way as character, impulse, gestation could be analyzed in you through the creation of your own mother, what your own mother, the way she creates you. Death day now is going to explain you in the sense of what you did with that how you managed that energy, how you managed that capabilities, that system of Nawals. It is very, very, very interesting. You get an idea, because, for example, I said John Lennon was assassinated. But if you go, for example, to Churchill, his birthday, which was the final tributation day of death, or Nawal, you can see what the man really was. And that That is amazing, and it is not an still open knowledge to the Western world.
Yeah, that is so deep. I can't even begin to start thinking about that. Although I'm tempted to look up right now what is the John Lennon's.
John Lennon was born under Beleheptoch. If I'm not, in this moment I don't know which was the tributation Nawal. It is called Jachb'al Nawal. In Mayan, it's called Jachb'al Nawal. Jachb'al, it is the same as harvesting. When you use this, when you go to the fields to collect your own maize, when you go to collect everything that you sow, when you go to harvest, we call it Jachb'al to collect your maize. Then Jachb'al Nawal is the Nawal that is taking our consciousness, or and it is the final tributation. That's why it's going to define what we did in life, and that is very amazing. And also it's sometimes spooky and frightening, because you can discover how some persons really, beyond Mayan or beyond whatever, they really achieve what they were, what was that sense, or what or which purposes they built. But sometimes you see that people were frustrated, were sad, were angry, were of illness, that at the end a Nawal, or the consciousness or the strength or the spirit of a Nawal is going to take. That is to see things and never fall, and has no failure also. Because you will see the struggle. For example, I'm going to give you a simple example. Let's say that you were born on, I'm not going to give numbers for not to make it so complicated, but let's say that you were born in E, the pathfinder or the road, and then the day that reclaims your energy, or the Jachb'al Nawal, the day that takes the tributation is Kame, death or suffering. That will means that you were born to follow a path, or to open a path, or to find path, or to walk, or to wandering in the world. But if a person that is born Nawal dies in Nawal Kame, then he or she was sad. Sadness was the mark of a life, the hallmark of a life.
So
the struggle was,
Keme is very connected to sadness.
Inner sadness, in the sense of inner suffering, like to be touched by pain and cry. Toch, for example, is another one that is connected to pain, but is more in the sense of sacrifice and bodily suffering or struggle. It depends.
I found John Lennon's death day. The Nawal is Oshiv Noch.
Well, then Oshiv Noch is a beyond assassination. Nawal Noch, Oshiv Noch means opening knowledge, opening a way of thought. So I can say that beyond the way of death, I'm not going to. I have to remark, it's not a positive way to be assassinated, but anyways, opens new ways of thought, and that was John Lennon was about it too.
That was inspired by him when I was young. I always really enjoyed his music, his philosophy, etc., etc. So more so than other musicians.
But look at that. For example, I don't know if you got my point, and I will insist. It's not about but the Nawal that reclaims your energy. Yes, because you can be, for example, with cancer.
Sure.
Or you could be from a long illness, or maybe you got this accident, or anything. You die just peacefully in your cave,
sure.
Or whatever. And then it is the Nawal that defines. So the Nawal Oshiv Noch, that is opening a way of thought, or opening the way to thoughts, speaks very, very, very clearly about what John Lennon was, and a person that was devoted to open ways of thinking. Maybe not in the beginning. Maybe through music in the beginning they were a little bit different, but they changed the musical world. They opened so many ways for artists, and they are one of the founders of the modern way to go deep into music and to understand the world as such. So John Lennon at the end, he was directing so many of his ideas to a believer of that war can be stopped by just saying the war is over or whatever. He has influence, so his life, his entire life, although he was Belheptoch, born Belheptoch, his Nawal was Belheptoch, the meaning, the profound sense of life was opening thoughts. Fantastic, right?
It is.
At least it sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very deep. Like I said, I'll have to think about that for God. Yeah, well, I will be thinking about that for a long time to come. So thank you very much for that. How do you say that practice in Mayan again, in Kiche?
Which one?
The Nawal of death.
Jachb'al.
Jachb'al.
Hach means to cut. Hach is to cut. Because you have you pick up your corn, you can pick up your beans, you can but for example for medicinal plants and things. So human life is all. If human life is always told to be connected with the corn, with penis, whatever, we imply the same words for the death of a person. Jachb'al Nawal, the Nawal that is going to harvest your thoughts, your energy. In this new effort, and that you already know from previous interviews you said you listened to, the effort for the creation, for example, for the Kachikel Maya University is to Western conceptualization of our philosophy. Because sometimes the people, even spiritual guides, apply the word soul, the soul, but soul always will be an indication or will always carry the sense that is given from the outside. The Mayan terms that talk about sensitivity and connection is more related to consciousness. So we can apply the word spirit, your Nawal, the spirit of your Nawal, your own spirit or your own consciousness. When applying to the death Nawal, Jachb'al, so it's going to harvest your consciousness, your inner thoughts, your inner way of irradiation, as to say, you as a fruit of the world. So, and it is a change.
But I would like to. The idea of somebody as a fruit is very interesting.
Well, that's a Mayan term. Give me one second. Put a pause over there.
Sure. Yeah.
Coming in 30 seconds.
Yeah. I hope somebody is listening to this interview and writing some of this stuff down. If you do, email it to me. We could all easily share it. Yeah. Word. Peace. Yeah, it's a trippy day here in Kyoto. It's raining. It's cold. It's one of the last days of, let's call it the cold season. It's not really winter. It's kind of spring. It's kind of painfully cold anyway. But it's going to be about 20 degrees next week. So that's Celsius. So that should be good. Just as like how can I say, a historical bookmark to frame this interview in a place, in a time. I'm sitting in my kitchen.
Well, I return now.
What's
I
up?
didn't
What's
listen
up?
too much of what you were saying.
Oh,
so
really? Ha!
let me return. Let me return to the point in which I deported. So, when another way to say Nawal, for most common understanding is a borrowing word from Nahuatl, Central Mexico language, Nahuatl,
Yeah.
Nawal.
Mm-hmm.
The Kiche term is the old one, is Uwachokich,
Oh, that's
and that
tough to pronounce. Holy. Hold on. Let me slow that down for a second. Uwacha.
Uwach,
Uwach. O. Ich.
exactly.
Wow. Uwach. O. Ich. Uwacha. O. Ich.
More or less.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to break down each phonetic sound and then I'll try to mix them together. But just to make sure I have every uwacha or eh. Anyway. Uwach. Uwach.
That's it. And the next is That's it. Now together. That's it.
Wow. Thanks. Thank you very much, man.
Well, means the fruit of the day. So whenever you're talking about a person and you said, the other way to say which is his Nawal is which is the fruit of the day. So we are also the fruit, the result, the production, or the substance of a day.
Is the fruit of the day.
Exactly. The substance also you can call it, but watch is fruit.
Watch is
you are
fruit.
A fruit. Yeah, and our inner bones are the seeds. So when you are buried under the earth, you are going to give your fruit, and your bones are going to be the seeds for a new life.
That's too profound. Once again, I'll have to think about that one for a while. That's.
Well, you say so. I always.
Yeah.
I always.
So you're a fruit, which is interesting because I feel very kind of like this is my Western conceptualization. Is in the West, if we call someone a fruit, it means they're crazy. He or she is it. So when I'm following the Tzolkin, I feel
yes,
people
yes, I know.
people think I'm kind of crazy. So it applies doubly.
Yes, I know. So well, you are a fruit. You were created in your mother's womb. Your bones are the new seeds. So when you are dead, the earth is going to take the fruit, but your bones are going to remain to provide new life or to give new life. The Nahual that takes your life, the Jachb'al, is taking that fruit. And it's a fruit of consciousness. Because that's what that is not our soul. There's no. We should not apply the word soul because this is not a fight for your souls between God and evil or whatever. There's no conceptualization as such. We are a civilization from nature, and there's no way to talk about that they are something or whatever, or the Jachb'al Nawal fighting for your soul. There's no. It's just your fruit. It's what you did in earth. What you did, which was this moment for you, which was your opportunity to say, this is what it is. So the Jachb'al Nawal, the one that takes you as a fruit and that takes to which you do the final tributation of consciousness, is the one that is going to define the struggle, the life that you live. Sometimes I got from some students here and there. What that means, and you have once again to analyze the birthday and to analyze the death, Jachb'al day, and then you can say you can feel which is that purpose once again, and it is going to reveal the struggle, the light, and everything. Now you can go to philosophers, for example, and to see, for example, Cioran. He was born under Lahuch E. He was born as a pathfinder. He wrote so much. He wrote the most bitter words ever. You cannot read one of his books without trying to go to commit suicide. But then you can analyze his Jachb'al day, and you can find anyways, beyond bitterness, beyond things like that. He fulfilled his destination. He understands some sense about his life, and he goes according to that.
What was his Jachb'al Nawal?
Emil, no, you do it.
Oh, okay.
I already did it. Now you do it. Okay. Emil Cioran. He is born under Lahuch E.
I don't know who that is, by the way.
Emil Cioran, the philosopher. Okay, yeah. That's good. That's what. His writings, reading one book of him is like, I'm going to go. This life does not worth the effort.
Wow. Well, yeah, I guess that's a whole nother thing for me to go and look up on the internet and get lost in. Thank you for that as well.
Emil Cioran is such a character. Wow. One day I was in a bus station and 5 hours or something like that. And there was an open library over there, but used books over there. And I said, well, I'm going to buy this book. And I said, Emil Cioran. Immediately I look at my books. In those times, I'm talking about 15 years ago, we used to carry our books, not like in present day that you have it in your cellular phone. And I said, this man is Lahuch E. Well, let's see. 5 hours after that, descending from the bus, I was so devastated. Like, oh, why did I read these words?
Well, what is his message? What did he say? What's his philosophy?
Oh, he's very bitter. He's like he reminds me Nietzsche when he says something like try to find it as soon as possible. Yes. Devastation, bitterness, sadness, depression. Oh gosh. Can't believe.
Nietzsche was Russian?
Nietzsche, for example, was Hun E, another pathfinder.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. By the way, one in the audience says that you are listening for the first time this conceptualization of death and of birth and death and the Nawal that takes away or carries or takes the consciousness of a person. The final tributation. For example, we Mayans, we have to pay. It is in our conceptualization or the philosophy about that paying back in the sense that you are not supposed to receive everything. You have to pay to the universe, to whatever you want. One is called tohopal, payment. So the Nawal that takes your consciousness in the final moment is the one that is the definitive and is going to absorb your consciousness. And that is, as I said, the one that defines your life, your struggle, your inner fights.
That is, have you, actually I have another question. Have you ever seen the, well, I'm sure you have, the nine Nawal Mayan cross horoscope?
Yes. I've seen it like in different frames and with different explanations. By the way, that is true. that is something that has been I don't know how to say it. That is truth. That is a way of explanation of the human being that defines the conditions of inception, conception, and birth. They are truth, but you have the better way to analyze that is knowing Kiche language and the real knowledge concept of Mayan conceptualization or Mayan definition of what an Nawal is. Because sometimes has reduced this as the Mayan cross, the Mayan horoscope, the Mayan but in reality it's a real structure. It's a real structure that has to be analyzed under the real Mayan knowledge. But it is true. It has 9 nawals. It has 9 nawals for principle, but it's going to be applied another one that is the year with another nawal, and the trecena maya, the 13 days to which your nawal pertains, and then you make the analysis. That is more than a radiography. It's going to show, to tell, or to show, or to give you everything a person is.
That's that's very that's interesting because I've seen this a lot. This 9 nawal. How would you call it in Kiche?
Choboch.
Choboch.
Choboch is Choboch is a term that is going to explain the reunion of peoples to talk and take a decision. We say it consejo in Spanish, but also when people assemble, and there are, for example, talking about Native Americans, this session in which all the elders gather together to take a decision, a reunion, a consejo. Choboch means that it is not an unilateral decision, but that there are many entities, as to say, involved in taking a decision. So it is called Nawali Choboch, the organization or the council of your own energy or own Nawals. That it means that you're not composed of one single consciousness. Let me complicate your life now. You are not composed of just one single that is your Nawal, but all the others also participate in taking decisions.
Geez, okay, here's another question. You often see the Nawals in groups with direction. You could say northeast, south, or west, or you could give them colors of yellow and black and white and red. And you, in that, how do you say? Choboch? Choboch. There is sort of the two opposite, how can I say, directions or colors. So, for example, my Nawal is kat, and so the color, or you would see yellow and white. That would be that.
Yeah. We can you can make the aggregation. You can put nawals together in a scheme of organization. Yes. For example, the red ones is agabal, kawu, kech, and so on, and the white ones and the yellow ones. But
what's the white ones?
But it's a human classification. Let me tell you.
Okay.
Don't go like God give us the tablets.
That's what I've heard. I've heard, in some ways I've seen it a lot and it's used, and in other ways I've heard no, don't pay attention to that. So I'm confused about what I should perceive.
So let me tell you what is the real stuff. Yes, all the nawals, the 20 nawals, can be arranged according to the directions of the earth and the sky. Yes. But it's a human classification. So if you are yellow, does not mean so much. It's a classification. It's a way to understand. But as such, it's not a substance of consciousness to deal with. So, for example, I'm also yellow. If you are cat, you are yellow, for example. And the red ones Akabal. It's only a classification, but that does not mean that I'm going to use yellow in my clothing, or that I have to that I have to choose a white one or something. No.
I wish that would be fun. But yeah, no, I've never thought about it like that. But for the reason I was asking is because, how can I say, there's a group of other yellow ones that I'm connected with. Is that true?
Yeah.
Right. That
It is called
was.
family. Yeah, it is called families of Nawals.
Yeah, that's how I felt that. So I was curious about what's the proper concept.
Because we belong to similar conditions of birth.
I see.
But this is of birth or of initiation. Not everything has a human birth, but some phenomena from nature has their own beginning point of manifestation. So not human, but a beginning point of manifestation. For example, for us it's very important to know in which day the first thunder accompanied, and that is for agricultural purposes, to know or to help us calculate humidity during the day. That is at the beginning point of a something, not a human birth. But anyways, when we talk about Nawals, directions, and colors, we can call it families of Nawals, because every one of them every one of them pertain or belong points. It is like cousins in families that has some connection.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to get a more clear explanation about that, so that I'm not using any I don't know, inaccurate concepts.
Well, then you can ask me. I'll be more than happy to answer. But
no, thank you very much for that. So another thing that I've often seen is that, and this is maybe a new age thing, maybe it's really wrong, is that, for example, Kiche and Akabal, the direction west and the color is black.
Kiche is red.
Yeah, I've heard that before in a few places, but I've also seen, for example, when I looked up John Lennon's death day, I used a website, and it's the fastest, most convenient, and available. I mean, it's an app, for your phone or whatever, and you just plug it in and it calculates it, correctly. But the color scheme is wrong, I guess, is what you're saying.
Well,
complicated question, maybe.
No, it's not complicated. What happens is that there has been so many tricksters since, let's say, like 30 years ago that introduced new noise in organizations and things like that. But anyways, you can see it in some codexes. Some codex, the organizations of Nawals through families. It is a way to analyze the Madrid Codex, for example, to analyze the families of Nawals and how they are used to make mathematical calculations to predict things in nature, or not to predict, but to tell what is their presence in nature. So, but in recent times, there are too many mixed opinions and bad opinions, and not really Mayan-based opinions. Well, just let's stay in my answer. Yes, there are families of Nawals. You can choose a color, but you may not go as far as astrological things like you can choose your bird, your tree, or your stone, because it's not always like that.
Yeah, no, I never really liked that. I'm not a big stone person. I don't really like stones, or I'm not, but
like this is your lucky stone. You have to use that because you are you and you are born cat. And it's like, well, maybe, I will buy one. But what if it's a buy?
Yeah, I will buy one. Yeah.
Yeah, well, sometimes I'm asked like that. Oh, you are a Mayan astrologer. Well, no. Can you tell me which my stone is? This stone that is in front of you. Or so, which is the stone to conquer a woman? Well, try a diamond.
Yeah.
Maybe she's going to pay attention to you. Things like that, but That's because people very different. It's a different science. It's a different philosophy. And the problem is that there has been too much Western conceptualization applied to our knowledge.
Well, it's good. So you mentioned earlier that you were involved with some kind of a university.
Yeah, the Maya Kaqchikel University. What happened is that I am a member of the academic foundation corpus of professors.
Yeah.
And one of the points is that precisely what happens with our knowledge is that it's not taken as such. We have been here no less than 2,000 years. That is more than enough to put some of the knowledge into science and philosophy, not just world. It is very easy that academics apply to us the world vision. Oh, world vision, your mother. This is philosophy. This is science. Because there's for example, it's very easy to say, wow, the ancient Mayas study the stars and they build these big pyramids. Well, we can do it now. We have the same knowledge, and it is a science as such. So what we are fighting back is that our believings is not believings or superstitions. It's a philosophy to deal with the world, with nature, for example.
I find that anybody who's I guess interested in this, it has sort of touched them in a way that I don't know. You touch this philosophy or science. Let's say you touch the science, and your life changes. You know, you all of a sudden you start noticing things. You know, like any other science, you would touch it, and wow, it's a different sort of eyes to see things. You know, but it really works. That's the sort of fascinating thing. And then from there, the philosophy just becomes very profound and beautiful, and you could sit around and think about it for years and years, and listen to people talk about it. But the academics, and I've talked to a few of them, most of them, if not all of them, that I've talked to, let's say, don't believe that this is real.
Yeah, for example, and there is we always laugh about, for example, these anthropologists that knows everything about illness in the Mayan world, and they talk about, oh, they believe in this soul, they believe in the other, they do this, they make payments or whatever. When this anthropologist return home, he goes to the Sayakat, to the shrink, to talk about their problems.
Right.
It's like, oh, you know about us, but you in your own world, you consider the science your science.
Yeah. See, and so, what kind of person is this to talk about this thing that they don't believe in?
Yeah.
What gives you the authority to speak on it? Like, you know, that's so fascinating. And one thing that they do very conveniently and seems very colonizingly is to always talk about the ancient and to focus on the ancient, and because it separates and ignores the Mayan people who are in, let's say, their home state of Ohio, gardening, right?
Yeah, for example, in my case, I'm not delivering babies anymore, but for example, if I can use the terms in which we analyze the movements of the baby, the way the baby responds, or the symptoms in the mother, the dreaming in the mother, the way the mother talks, the presence that can be classified, can be used. They can follow the hypothesis, method, comproval, and everything as a science. And for example, we just have to think about how all this Western science, as I don't know, in illustration begins the efforts to make a system, to systemize the knowledge. But now we know that science now it's very difficult to define what science is. Sometimes science wants you to believe something, to sell you something.
Sure. Well, yes.
Sometimes it's not so accurate. Maybe mathematics or physics, but there are some other signs that you have to say, wait a little bit. It's not.
Sure. I heard, actually, this is something I've been listening to, let's say, the psychological impact of Western religion. And I think it could be said very truthfully that science is the result of Christianity.
Well, mother, yeah. And how old is that? Like no more than 500 years old. We have been in here like 2000.
Or
But
more.
we are the ones. But we are this. But for science, we are treated as the superstitious, and
Right.
we are treated as the savage Indians left behind after conquer. And that is not true. That's why we founded the Universidad Maya Kaqchikel, to apply our own terms to define our own world.
I couldn't be more happy to hear that. It's really wonderful thing that you guys are doing. Thank you very much. It's enriched my life a lot already, even in this interview.
Oh, you're welcome. But what we are trying to what we are doing is to use our language. For example, in this interview, I have been telling you, I use the word consciousness, yes, but I can find a way of thought, a way of responding, a way of absorbing, a stimulation. So we are not talking about a soul. We are talking about a consciousness, and that is our science. Or for example, I say, the Nawal that is taking your energy, all the philosophy linked to the language, you will find this is very rich. There's no missing link. We inherit these millennial civilizations and millennium civilizations. So the Universidad Maya, we are organizing the Zero Congress, because for us the zero is important as number one, for example. Well,
how do you say zero?
The number zero in Mayan?
Yes.
Mach.
Mach.
Mach, that it means
there's nothing.
Kotach,
and
like does not exist.
Okay. Mach, and then conference. How do you say conference?
Conference? To give a conference?
Yeah, or to participate, like the zero conference, for example. Mach.
No, well, that could be that is different. Is kulpal chapal. Kulpal chapal means a place in which the reunion to talk. A kulpal chapal. Okulik chapal. Okul chapal.
I can't do it. Balch.
Yeah, there are many ways to define what a congregation of people is.
I like the idea of reunion. That's a good word.
Yeah, a reunion to talk. And the Zero Congress is devoted to make available our epistemology as to give to the world that we are aware of what this knowledge is. And superstition is a philosophy, not a worldview. It is also art, no artisans. We're artists, not artisans. So, and there are many areas of expertise that defines what is to be a Mayan or descendant of the Mayan. There's astrologers, mathematicians, writers. There are midwives, doctors. You can name it. There's the equivalent in the Mayan way, but we're making this effort to make it and to talk about us as a scientists also. Professionals, for example, professionals of health.
That's a good idea to think about, because there's so many different things you could do with your time and your work. Just as a person, even a farmer is a professional farmer, somebody who's a full-time growing food for everyone.
And it's very amazing about something. And a good farmer is also an astronomer, because some of them know very well the movement of the stars, and also to know most of them, women or men, know how to read what's happening with the wind, with the atmospheric pressure, with the clouds, how they carry humidity, of things like that, meteorologists, astronomers, and farmers. Because when your life depends on not irrigation systems of production of your food, you need to know how nature is behaving. Much of them are those have those knowledge. And sometimes they return home and they are also midwives. They return homes and they are also ceremonial speakers, writers, teachers, professionals in all senses.
Yeah, I think that's something that's never happened before in the Western world, is to view, let's say, another culture, but particularly indigenous culture, as professionals. You wouldn't hear people talking about that.
No, and just think about, for example, the quantity of medicine knowledge that we hold through plants. For example, the use of plants, how to, for example, for healing and things like that is amazingly profound. You have to spend years and years and years learning the properties of different plants in the mountains, or sometimes a healer tells you, go for this plant, and you have to go and you see 10 different that look alike. You have to differentiate and to know, but also to apply it for health and everything. And sadly, is something that is beginning to it begins the process of extinction. That's why the Kachikel University is making the effort to go and collect knowledge and to go out and get those knowledge that is very profound knowledge about the nature and about everything. As I told you, modern science, where does it begins? In illustration times. We are in here like 2,000 years. This we have knowledge to share it, or to consider as better options as what we saw or what we have to pay in the Western world.
To me, the most, I mean, there's so many levels where to start, but the most immediately profound thing that I became fascinated with was the psychological, I guess, usefulness, or the psychological aspect of having a nawal.
Well, that's the problem. For example, for us, psychology is a pseudoscience.
Sure.
For us, based on statistics, not a real science. Is not studying anything. Even the conceptualization is, well, maybe it's the best option that we have till this moment to think about subconscious, unconscious, conscious, whatever you can name, whatever point.
Sure.
But it is called psychology, the study of the soul, and they don't even know what is consciousness or what is a soul.
Right.
And for us, it's like, oh, you do want to go to the psychiatrist? Okay, that's okay. That's a pseudoscience for us.
I would agree. That's always been my view, but I use the word more as a sort of a tool to describe something. Like, it's the best word that I could think of. It would be, maybe a better word could be characteristics. It describes characteristics of a person so amazingly that it's peculiar. How, if I... Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that most of the... And I have been talking to many psychiatrists about that. I found their foundation to be very, very free. It's all the like, what are you talking about? I'm not depressed. Think that, I don't know. They have these very heavy terms like psychotic, like neurotic, like the guiltiness that you took off from being a religious being, you got it over there. Like, no, you are no longer a sinner, but you are a psychotic. You are so fucked up now with psychology. And we found it as an useless tool to define reality or to define what a human being is. They have good ideas, but no more than good ideas when they are applied to the Western world of American psychology. Has put consciousness into sale.
Into sale.
Yeah, to be sold or
I see.
to be sold.
Yeah, that's true. It's something.
For psychology, consciousness is now Americanized. Just think about you go and you got these depression symptoms, and then you are going to have your pills.
Right.
You got to sell your consciousnness.
Right. Yeah. That's always been my view of psychology. Is pseudoscience or
apologies. That's what you are going to say.
Sorry.
No, I was joking that maybe you are going to respond to me. Well, I'm a psychologist. Oh, I'm going to say I have an appointment with my psychiatrist in 2 hours.
No.
Well, just think about how psychology and psychiatrists and the pharmaceutical and everything has been growing. It is not for us. It's not other way than putting your consciousness in a way to be Americanized. They profit with your consciousness.
Yeah, I'm not very useful. Anyways, psychology is not actually very interesting. I'm much more interested in the Tzolkin or Cha'ol Ich. One thing that I was originally intending to maybe clarify with you was a clear meaning of each Nawal, because maybe we have some false conceptualizations about each Nawal that if we had a better concept, it would be how can I say, more honest or more close to the reality. So it would be nice to sort of clear away some of the misconceptions of some of the meanings of the Nawals.
Well, that's a good idea for sure, but that is going to take us.
Yeah.
That's going to take us quite a while, because also the Nawals, the most of the modern way to look at and to define Nawals was also very influenced by the first Spaniard missionary. Then by and recently by New Age people, and then by let's say bad interpretations of the knowledge. I can tell you how it is, but it is. We will need more time, another session to begin.
Sure.
Do things, because in the Mayan original language, there's no colonization. It has to begin with erasing some of those labels put by missionaries and by religious people. But the Nawals are very keen to describe forces of nature, conditions. This is a very, very beautiful knowledge. And it is not because I am the spiritual guide of this knowledge. It is very. It has an immediate. It has a direct link to phenomena in nature. So you can, for example, there are people that ask me about their Nawal, and I talk about the poetical metaphors of nature, and it's very easy to understand who you are, what you are, how you are, which is this spirit consciousness or whatever that is embodying you. And yes, most of what people sometimes asking me, recommend me a link to the web. No calculators. The calculators are based in mathematics, and that's it. You can calculate things. It's mathematics, but the descriptions, are Christian descriptions. Because, for example, they begin with the good and the bad. This Nawal is good for this and bad for this. No way. That's not the way to talk about a Nawal. That's Western astrology. That's not Mayan way. Mayan way is not going to say to apply those terms. So if you want me to talk about that, well, let's do it.
Sure. No, it's okay.
I'm open to talk about, but not at this hour.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Well, because I live in Japan, right? So as you were speaking, I was thinking about my everyday experiences here. I live here, I work here, I go out in the world, and there's a Japanese way to do things. And it's applied to everything. You can't just do something. It has to be done from this concept. So when I'm explaining, say, what does this mean in Japanese or something like that to somebody, I'll say, well, they have these words, but the words are actually concepts, and so it's a way to perceive something, and that's the whole point of it. And they perceive things very, very, very differently here. It's very different, and it's very interesting. So now I'm sort of thinking about that, but of course applied to your culture, which of course is very different, from here. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. The Chinese way and the Oriental way. But it's a good idea. Let me return to the point. It is a good idea if you want to have, for Western audience, to have a better or a keen definition of Nawals according to the real Mayan language. That would be perfect. But misconceptions or not correct conceptions, because as I told you, in the Mayan language is very different.
Right.
Sometimes I'm asked a huge quantity of things that I said, oh no, what are you talking about? The bad side of my Nawal? Well, I have my moments, but I can talk about things I have been doing incorrectly, but that's not a way to define an Nawal. So we are not Christians.
It's the wrong approach, perhaps.
Yeah, a wrong approach, or this human and very understandable thing that whenever you approach something that is not known, you are going to apply your own terms to try to define. And that is a weight that we humans carry for everything. We define things as based in our own culture. Even from the exploration of the universe, we are going to apply. We are already applying our terms to try to define, for example, what is consciousness. We apply it to in here, like thinking human consciousness is the way to understand the nature of the universe, and that is not true.
How do you say consciousness again? Could you repeat that?
It's a combination of words. One is kush lashik, and the other is no.
Okay, and what could you break down the meaning of those two words?
Kush lashiks is defining a way to think, but not to think strictly through the mind.
I see.
It's a way of pondering and taking into account, but to think, to ponder, to have a decision, or to have a response. That is important for consciousness, to have a response. Yes, obviously. You are a sentient being or you are a conscious being if I talk to you and you respond to me. That is the basis, one of the bases of consciousness. Yes. If you don't respond to me, I will say, well, this is unconscious. That is obvious, right?
I think so. I hope so.
Or this is unconscious, subconscious, or has no conscious. But if you respond, that is the basis of communication, then I can say, okay, you have a way to respond. You have maybe we don't have the same knowledge, but if you respond, then there's something there. There's something that is receiving my information and giving back some information. Kushlashik then defines a way of thought for the emission of a response.
Okay, and so the first word is the response, and the second word was
Kushlashik is to
Lashik.
ponder or to think or
Uh-huh.
to use your heart, and is not related to the use of the mind as analytical thought.
Okay.
Kushlashik.
Okay.
And the second is called naoh,
Now.
and that is a property to feel. To feel, as for example, to sense the world around you, that you are aware of your surroundings. And that is another important thing about consciousness, to be aware of your surroundings.
So to be to respond and to be aware.
To think, to respond, or to give an answer. To think aware and sensitive or aware of your surroundings. That is most of the terms that can define consciousness, that you know that you are not in a stone.
Okay.
And that you respond in a certain way.
Okay, thank you for that. I think one thing I've heard recently a lot of, and as a serious problem, is the lack of the use of Mayan words. People are not speaking the language. I think Josh has talked about this a lot, actually, and so trying to incorporate or make it more accessible to people who are actually interested. I think is maybe something I could do that is useful or helpful.
Well, what happens is that, obviously, and I'm not going to make the citation of Chomsky, but language also defines your reality. We are not going to go into that in this moment, but it is true.
I think it's true, yeah.
Yeah, the way you thought, the way you understand the language, and the way the language was built is going to define your reality. That's why I'm very opposed to psychology when they say, well, you are depressed, oh, well, you are a psychotic, you are a neurotic. And that is heavy, man. That is like, oh, you are so fucked up. Then the better way to understand things in the Mayan way is through the knowledge and through the language, and through the morpheme, that is the nucleus of the word. Because in Mayan ways, the morpheme is going to be defined by how you make or add, or how do you use the word. So for example, pondering could be related to be sensitive, but decision. You have to be there's is defining something that can has different ways of looking at, or different phases, as to say. So Josh, and I always stress him that, tell him, or I make the remark of understanding Nahuals through the proper language, for to understand which is the limit, what they are really explaining,
Right.
what they are really telling you.
It's a concept. The word itself is a concept, and if you have the wrong concept, you didn't correctly understand it.
Yeah, and sometimes there are very, let's say, really, to the Nahuals, that is completely absurd.
I like that. That's funny.
Yeah, it's very funny, because some of the Nahuals now they look so folklorical. Like, for example, if you are born deer, Kej,
Sure.
or Kie, it is supposed that you love nature as the deers. And that's not truth. Or could be in some
Could be. I thought this was interesting. My younger brother is how can I say, Wakiv Kiech? Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And this year is Wakiv Kiech, right?
Yeah.
Are those two things connected in any way?
Well,
sorry to ask you.
Well, what depends is that, is he aware that he has of the Mayan knowledge? Does he know something?
A little bit. I'll give you just a quick bio of my brother. He's a fisherman. He lives out on right now he's out in the sea in a big fishing boat, and he'll be out there for a few months, but he lives way in the north in Canada, near Alaska, on an island, and it's kind of a fishing island, and he spends all his time in nature is what he does.
Well, yeah. Well, this year is no. Let's say is going to be a year in which he's going to find that he's stronger than in the others, but maybe he's not going to define it by let's say by the year or by the Mayan influence. Maybe he's going to feel he's in a good age or having good luck or something. He's going to have something.
Sure. Well, I'm sorry. I don't need to get you to explain, talk about my brother or anything. I was just curious if the two things were connected.
Yeah, the year is going to affect him.
That's very interesting. And because there's only the four, so you'd have Kiche, Noch, Ik, and as holders. How do you say the holder of the year in Kiche?
No, do we call it mam?
Mam.
In Kiche,
sorry.
In Kiche is called mam. That it means an elder, the grandfather. How can I say? It's defining the heavy presence of someone that has experience.
That makes sense for like an elder or a grandfather. So does that have an effect? How else do they have kind of a different because of the year? So, for example, because it's a Kiech year or an Ik year, does that have maybe a unique effect on the people who have that they're? I guess the four of those are different from the others, or something like that.
Well, we all well, this is like another. I don't know if it's.
Sorry to ask you a too long question.
Yeah, but what happens is that in a way this is another secret.
I don't want to step across any lines.
Well, I need to get released of all these secrets. Obviously, the year is also a component, a bigger component in your organization of forces, in this Jachb'al, in this council of Nawals. And the year is like the second on command.
After the
Uwachaqir or the Nawal.
Okay.
Then is going to be the guide of the council. And the year is going to be the Uqab, the second, like the secretary of the council.
I have heard the word secretary before. I've heard people say the mam is like a secretary. Please continue though. Sorry.
He's the second. He's the second at church.
Okay.
Could be taken as a secretary, as an Uqab. The second at command. The vice president.
So it has a very big influence on, let's say, a person.
Oh yeah, could be. If the Nawal, the Uwachaqir or the birthday are weak, the mam could be the real ruler of your life.
Okay, I won't talk about me. But anyways, well, mine is Hun Kiech. That's my
don't go into public.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know that. I don't know the rules,
Well, we can talk about John Lennon and Emile Cioran if you want. They are already dead, but not to talk about you.
Okay. Oh, no, that's okay. Sorry about that. But that's the first time I've really heard that it's second in command. So, that's another thing for me to think about. And actually, that brings me back to the original topic that I was interested in, before this conversation started. And of course, it just kind of grew into its own thing. But, I'm not sure that I have correct concepts of what all these things are. So I'm really careful about how to interpret or how to think about something like that. So, for example, the mom, I'm not really trying to be a bit conservative about what I say about it.
Well, this is the second on command, and it can be sometimes stronger than the Amalbe, the guide of the Jachb'al, the council of Nawals, or the Uwachaqir, the day in which you are born. Sometimes can be stronger, and obviously it is producing or giving you additional, let's say, capabilities. If your Nawal is, if your mom, the year is Noh, then you're going to be to have an additional way of thought and taking decisions and obsession and things like that. They are going to. It's a very precise organization of energy. I'm going to apply the word energy, although in Mayan there's no energy word.
What would you say?
Ujo up, strength.
Okay. A way of strength.
Kushil, consciousness. Heart, spirit, if you want it, but spirit is also very.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can use some. We said prostitute words to try to understand, but those are not the words.
Calling the words words, I think, is a good conceptualization.
Well, if you apply energy to everything, well, you need to read more books. You need to prepare yourself. You need to help yourself.
Oh, that's funny.
You are giving Maya knowledge, but name. You have to use something beyond energy, but because everything has a property, so it could be a strength, it could be a consciousness, could be characteristics. But we apply energy to everything. So, oh, you are bad. You have good energy. Oh, well, maybe, or oh, your energy is low, or something like that. In the Mayan language, you have to have keywords because everything that you define is going to be used for healings, for example, for healing purposes.
So I was talking to Josh a little while ago about I guess a glossary of words. You know, like the university, is it Kachikel University?
Yeah.
There's let's say a website or a place to access maybe words, like a definition.
Not in this moment. Not in this moment. That's why we're organizing the Zero Congress to begin to present this knowledge as a science, philosophy, and art. And that we are the of scientific persons or artists, science, and philosophers, not crazy brujos from the mountain.
That's hard to break from that negative stigma that's been placed on you.
It's very difficult, but for example, take into account what I have been doing during years, talking about pregnancy. There's no way for me to have any superstition about pregnancy. If not, I'm going to get that baby dead and that mother dead. I have to apply the key words. Consider the baby alive and conscious. He emits response. He can move, or she can move in the womb. There are too many conditions to consider that this is a very, very, very interesting science about pregnancy and conception and the mother and the living conscious creature. I cannot have superstition, and I'm not going to call stupid spirits to help me. No, I have to know how to deal with the baby. If the baby is in a bad position, if the mother has a breakdown or an emotional breakdown, I have to know how to do. If not, I'm going to get both death.
That is very serious.
Obviously, if you are having bad luck or your girlfriend does not love you, I can do hocus pocus. Dealing this kind of thing, you have to use this science because the baby is alive. You're not going to jeopardize the life of a being that is not already born but already conscious.
Yeah, well, and talking, you were the first person to talk about the Tzolkin or Cha'ok in very, I could say, in detail as a pregnancy cycle or calendar, and if you begin with that concept, it's a good place to begin because it's very personal and small, and birth is a miracle, and everybody who's experienced it knows that.
Yeah. What I found the amazing thing is that was not supposed that we are studying the universe. Why don't we consider the mother the real creator? For instance, for the beginning, the sacred femininity. For the baby, the mother is the universe, not a god or not an anything that you cannot see. Or maybe you can have any idea of what god or not god is, since the physical contact is the mother. There has, although there it is supposed to be a signs of pregnancy, there is not signs of pregnancy at all. For example, how to talk to the baby, how to massage the mother's stomach, how to deal with the emotions of the mother, how to use herbs to help, how to direct the total conception time. I haven't seen this applied in any science or in any philosophical, and not in modern science, to consider all those factors. Maybe here and there, also not all of them. The baby can begin to learn. The baby can learn since pregnancy moment. So just imagine that, for example, if the mother loves to be beaten, maybe she's sending a signal that is the way to behave. And if the baby feels connects this, the mother having pleasure by being beaten, then the baby is going to learn that as a way of living. That is very difficult. That is something that you have to stop or to understand. Or the mother, that is the creator, receiving, is going to retransmit to the baby. And I haven't found in pseudoscience psychology conceptualization about this, how to connect everything. And by the way, is everything linked and connected to the Mayan calendar? That's why we are making this. I'm going to return. We are making this concept, this return to consider that the Mayan calendar is not only the schedule of time, but also the study of the properties of the elements in nature.
That's, at least it sounds correct to me. Because it's nice to start with the pregnancy, which is small, or to think about it as time. But if you start to think about, maybe the Nawals as elements. For example, Emosh is water, and it's connected with the spirits of water. Or Ish could be the earth, or you know what I'm saying. It could be found in the natural world if you looked for it.
Yeah, that's what is happening. Well, when I'm sometimes I translate the ceremonial speech to people. Sometimes they say, "Oh, it sounds nature is always linked to nature." So yes, emoji is the spirit of the water, or to be fluid, to follow a path, to take the form of the container. For example, if you want to conceptualize what water is, and Ishbalam could be the jaguar, also the mother, but the aggressive, not the aggressive, not the loving mother, but the aggressive one, because a jaguar is going to protect and kill. So just put it into this Mother Earth lore that is the New Agers, talking about the Mother Earth as loving being. No, for us is more connected to the aggressiveness of the feminine. And I'm going to go back to the same words. The jaguar is not going to protect; it's going to kill. It's not going to go to try to convince you not to go close to her cave. It's going to chase you. And the terms that we use that to connect that to the earth is also goes in feminine aggressive. That is not bad. It is just a condition, and then you can name whatever you want. Kawuk is the lightning, and Toch is the thunder, and everything that you wanna call. There are some more abstract nawals as E, that is the pathfinder, that does not define strictly an element of nature. But anyways, it is you can get the connection there to something related to you, to the universe.
Too many questions. Too many questions. I have. What when you said I'd heard that was your intestines in your body.
Oh well, so link that. Well, let me begin. There's true that some nawals have a reign over the body. That is true. That is perfectly. There is another secret knowledge about the body as a container of nawals. That is true. But the people has made very folklorical associations about this, like emoji is white, so emoji is the white part of the eyes.
Wait, stop. Emoji is white.
For example.
Okay.
For example, I'm talking about some folklorical lore that
sure.
Link, or for example, if Can is a serpent, is the intestines or things like that.
I see.
That is not true. You have not to make folklorical association. There's a very beautiful and philosophical way to consider the body as a container of the nawals. Nawal E should be the right foot in the sense of making the first step. Tempo. And that's it. And you can continue with the parts of the body, but there's a philosophical association, not a folklorical one. Who's going to be connected to shit, for example? Nobody will want to be.
Shit. A, of course.
God, right? But just think about that. Sometimes people use those associations, and that is not true. Associations of nawals, because, for example, nawal nog is very clearly that is related to the mind, but it's not the mind. It's related to the properties of the mind, what the mind does as analysis, synthesis, conceptualization. E is very obviously that is connected to the legs or to the foot, to the right specifically, because it's the first step. Going backwards or going to the front or whatever, and Nawal Tzolkin and everything, they have a connection. But
Tzolkin is eyes. Is that fair to say?
No, Tzolkin is. I'm not going to tell you what.
That's fine. You don't have to tell me. It's just I think it's funny that I'm always wrong. So it's just I'm very conservative to say anything because, for example, my guess would be, well, it's it's vision. It's a bird's sort of view. So I would say perhaps it's this, and of course, no, way off.
No, well, let me tell you something, and we talk about the pennies.
Right. Yes, I do actually remember that.
And we said in Mayan, Tzolkin, not Tzolkin as such. But which is going to be the nawal that is going to define the vagina, for example?
Ish Balam.
No.
What? Okay, I don't know. I see. What is it?
No, I don't know, man. But if you
I see.
Life have always see a vagina, because a vagina looks like a seed.
Looks like a seed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Haven't you seen a vagina?
Maybe once.
Well, you can Google vagina and it's going to appear several pictures. It's like a seed, and if you see a seed, it's Nawal Kanil. Why? Because in the Mayan philosophy, the mother is the one that has the seed, not the man. We call it semen, right? As the man. This is This is a machista way of thinking that the man has the seed, and we call it semen because of that, because we believe that the man has the seed. But in the Mayan ways, as following the metaphor of the earth, the woman is the one that has the seed, and is the seed. And if you see a vagina, it's a seed. So in the mother is the power. She has the seed.
What about
the man? The other. So
what does the man have then? The woman has the seed, and the man has the pollen.
No, follow the nature. The fertility of the earth is with the seed inside. The man, the rain is going to begin the process of germination.
I see.
that is the same scheme that is applied to what the man does. The man is like the rain. The penis is Nawal Tzolkin, and the vagina is Nawal Kanil, because the mother has the power, and the mother has the seed, and the mother is who at the end is going to grow, as the earth grow, the seed, and then the earth gives us the plant, the mother gives us the baby. See?
It's too profound. That's too profound. And I've never heard it. Again.
Are you Googling vagina?
Yeah, hold on. Let me just open up my browser here. How do you spell it?
Well, let me tell you, it's based on nature. We're not sinners. It's just very obvious.
Sure.
And it's following a feminine scheme of what is the reality. The mother has the power. The mother is your own creator. Your mother, my mother, anybody's mother, she had the power to build us as what we are. So there is no disrespect to say that the vagina is a seed. The vagina is a seed. The mother has to have the fertility. The father only does the job for and can be no longer be present. The mother do all the job. She has the seed. And that's why the vagina is Nawal Kanil. Can be rotten, could be not productive, could be a seed that is not productive.
Yes, I can. Well, even I'm looking at a picture of the Tzolkin, and Kanil even looks like the picture, the Nawal itself looks like a hole in the center, right?
Yeah. Well, but Kanil drone is followed by the old. It is not. Where in this moment we're talking about the. We are talking about the Kiche. The Kiche talking about. Anil is based on the morpheme that is an. An means yellow, and yellow is also with the nature. When nature has already been green and now is yellow because the earth already produced a fluid. For example, if you follow the corn, well, you are going to have a time in which the corn is green. Then the plant is going to be yellow. That is the time to harvest. So Nawal Kanil is also related to Venus, which is Venus, and then I get all the conceptualization. Design the drawing, the dibujo that we saw in Kanil is Venus, because it's the 9 months. Mm-hmm. It's to harvest, and but also is to germinate. So that's the semen. What is the semen? Is the liquid. It is just following nature's metaphors that you can understand what is this.
You said something else. God, this isn't so many questions. Which was ka'an or an is yellow, means yellow, but ka'an is the snake.
No, but that's another pronunciation. Ka'an is the snake.
I see. It's a different word.
It's a different word.
Okay.
Yes, Ka'an in Kiche is and Ka'an does not mean serpent or
okay.
Ka'an means in fury.
In fury. Ka'an.
Yeah. Ka'an. If you found a dog barking to you and going aggressive with you, we said Ka'an. The dog is pissed off, is in fury.
Really? So when you come up to this Nawal, the Nawal's name is Fury?
In reality, it's Fury. Also, you can link the word to the Chol word that is Kan, and that it means session. But we don't say serpent. In Kiche, we say Kumats. Serpent. But when we talk about someone that is in fury, we say Ka'an.
So, for example, in the West, the concept of a snake is very bad. People have, in Japan, it's actually very good. There's no problem with a snake culturally. In fact, it's considered lucky. But in the West, because of the Bible, then you wouldn't describe the Nawal as a snake. You would describe it as fury.
I can use both.
Sure.
I can use both, and I can use metaphors as, for example, thunder as Nawal Toch, but through the visual way of that is like exactly that is the same in here. But lighting is related to Nawal Toch, and the visual image of light that is like a serpent is linked to Nawal Khan.
The visual image is Khan. So you could, for example, if you were talking, in a Western place, instead of saying snake, because people don't like being called a snake. If hey, you're a snake, like that means you're bad. Basically, again, it comes back to our idea of good and bad.
And the others, there's the Mayan Nawal that is dog. And they will say, what I am? There's the people is asking you, what I am. You explain that you are dog.
Well, actually, I've never had a problem with dog because people like dogs. Dogs are cute. Dogs are nice. Dogs are fun. Dogs are, there's a lot of wonderful things. But I see what you're saying. If you call someone a dog, it means you're dirty and low and etc. gross and you smell bad. Sexual. Yeah, you're always fucking.
Yes,
in public,
yeah, in the streets and things like that. So it's very the sinner. Akmak sometimes is called the sinner after Christian medieval conceptualization. So there's going to, but well, that's what we are going to do next in maybe next section.
Yeah, eventually.
Eventually we have to decolonize, and I'm going to tell you what is behind the word in Kiche and the real conceptualization, and beyond good and bad, or good and evil, or God and Satan,
which was I have not talked to you, in a Skype call like this since last February. What was before ik? Mam no? I think that's right. Anyways, all of the last year, I moved to a different city. I got different jobs, and for example, the podcast host that I was using was closed down, so I had to take down. Yeah, my computer broke, et cetera, et cetera. So all of these things were sort of in the way of me doing this, and only this year I finally, got a new podcast host and fixed my computer, or I got a new computer, and all these different, and finally my schedule is free enough that I can actually have time to do these calls and and things like that. Oh geez, I can't remember what the question was. Okay.
That you have that the last year was very heavy for you. Maybe the universe has a purpose for you.
I think so. Jesus particularly has a purpose for me.
I'm not guruing you.
That's what I was told. I think what I was saying though is that what I would really like to do. Okay, so that's what it was. Is this new podcast host allows me to? It's kind of cool. I can put let's say MP3 files onto a calendar, and it will release them sort of on a schedule without me, sort of automated, right? So, which is really cool. I didn't have that ability before, but now I had to do everything manually. But now which is kind of great. And so I thought that, sort of every day you could put a little thing. Like, for example, Josh's concern is language. So why don't we, put in a new word, and so it'll come out, every single day, something like that. So that's something that I would be really, really interested in doing. I could, of course, record it all at one time and then just cut it up into bits, and then put that's why I wanted to go through the different nawals, is we could have a more clear description of some of the terms and things like that, and then put it on a schedule so that every day you could sort of study it a little bit.
Well, yes, we can do more stuff if you want, but take into account that Now I'm giving classes in the university and whatever, and traveling, and
Oh, I know.
I can help. Yes.
Well, I know you're available when you are, and you're busy when you're busy, you know. And of course, you know, life goes on. But yeah, any chance, you know, that I have to talk to you, I'm always really, really happy and excited, and yeah, you know, very grateful. Thank you very, very much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, Jess.
God, I would call it Belehab Akmak. I think that's what I'm trying to do is associate it with the day that it happens. Is that fair to do?
Yes, that's fair to do. But well, for example, I talk about so many things that the Western world listen to. And I think one of the most important things was this Jachb'al Nawal, the Nawal to which you that is going to take your final tributation. I just wrote it to you, Jachb'al Nawal.
Well, thank you. I'll call the episode Jachb'al Nawal, and I'll sort of explain a little bit about what that is, and you know, sort of allude to the conversation that we had. And
yeah, the Nawal of the final
tributation, yeah.
That is a concept that I have not even seen in the Western world, and there are only a few of us in the Mayan world that can talk about this Nawal, Jachb'al Nawal, and this is something very new that maybe needs also to be understood, especially when you analyze the life of could you really have the correct date, so you can use it as a way to understand how they deal with their lives. You can make comparison, you can make the statistics, and notice that every one of us has a chance to change, to move, to design, to design our purpose. We're not really just going through the dust in the wind. We have the opportunity,
which I'm sure is pretty laughable, but I'll just shoot anyways. Always is on the I forget the word now, but the 9 Nawal Mayan horoscope, or what we call it, Choboch. So would you say Nawal Choboch or just Choboch?
Nawali Choboch.
Nawali Choboch. And I'll try to learn
Nawals.
This sign, which is sometimes referred to as the destiny sign, and it rules some future point. Is that accurately a misinterpretation?
I didn't get your point.
Okay, okay. So, for example, on the Choboch, there's the center line. You know, there's 3 lines, and there's the center one, and it would.
But I don't know how to. That has to be. I need to make it drawn to show you what is that. And I think this is this Choboch is an organization is composed of different nawals with different properties, but at the same time they have a different function. In difficult because I have to make lines and to explain and everything.
We'll save that for another time. Don't worry about it. I think this is a good place to just kind of to wrap this up, and once again, thank you very much for taking the time. And is there a website or a place that people can go and look up the Kachikel?
Maya Kaqchikel.
Could you write that down into the Skype chat, and then I'll copy the link, and I'll put it into the description, because I don't know if I could write Spanish things very well.
Well, there's a website that we just begin the new cycle this month. There's also capability for online courses, teachings in some sort, and
there's courses people can take.
Yeah.
Great. That's awesome. And are they online?
Yeah.
Wow. And in which language? In Spanish?
There's Spanish, English, and Kachikel. For the effort is to go to the.
Thank you very much or thank you to everybody very much for putting it in English. I appreciate that a lot.
I am the one that is making this job.
I say I appreciate it a lot, and it's a miracle that you speak English. So.
Oh, it's not a miracle. Well, now it has another function called.
You got married.
Skills. Oh yeah.
This last year?
Nah, just a couple of days.
A few days ago?
Yeah.
Wow! Congratulations.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, good for you.
Oh yes, of course.
That's awesome.
And she's helping me with some key words in English, and maybe at the end we are going to find better ways to express in English things. I learned by myself, but she's helping me to do a better job with English.
It's really great to hear. You know, it's wonderful to to talk to you again after so long, and I look forward to talking to you.
Now you found that I'm married. That's okay.
Well, you know, the reason I didn't want to say this, but like when I first talked to you, you were really sad because you had some troubles with a woman or something. You didn't really say the details, but you said something like that.
Well, what happened is that what I was describing was not really problems, let's say, directly with a woman. Remember evangelism?
Yes. You said that there was angelical people involved or something like that.
It was different. What chased to death.
Sure.
Yeah. We are, yes. To be now what? Not in my case, but sometimes what. Persons that used to be rulers or to be, let's say, the spiritual leaders of towns, now they are becoming little by little the outcasts, facing problems with evangelicals and things like that. That was not really funny in those times. Then I faced the death of one of my spiritual fathers and guides in life and things like that. Yes. It was our first podcast carry a little bit that sense, but not now. I'm very happily married and in a very good, happy relationship.
Well, that's really, yeah, that's a great place to be.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, and it'd be interesting to, well, yeah, you know, because of your experience with the midwife. You know, if there's children or something like that, it'd be interesting. Those children have a very rare father, very rare father. So that's kind of cool too.
Oh
well. One step at a. Married a few days ago. Let's go on that.
Yeah, don't talk about that.
Sorry, man.
In this moment, please.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, well, then see you next time, and I will be more than happy for the audience and the audience to listen to this.
I looked. There's a map of which countries are listening to this podcast, and so it shows each country how many downloads and things like that. So it's really cool. It's actually going all around the world. So that's really cool.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Congratulations for us.
All right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talk to you again next time, and yeah, have a great night.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good day, and see you. Jachb'al Chik.
Jachb'al Chik.
Jachb'al Chik. Talk to you later.
Jachb'al Chik. Talk to you later, man.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you.
Well, that was another interesting podcast with Apabyan too. How do I exit after that? Special thanks to our sponsor, the Tzolkin Explorer app, which you can get at Google Play for Android, App Store for Apple products. And we will see you next time on Living the Tzolkin. The description for the Mayan Kaqchikel University, or the link for it, is in the description. So I hope you guys check that out, and please, please, please give us a rating on iTunes or on Google. It helps out a lot. Take care and peace and love.